I'm with Will Levy and Pat Costigan here at HUD headquarters. Thanks for joining on our sort of Thursday afternoon RAD Q A broadcast. So today what we really want to do is talk about where we are with the 60,000 unit cap and the status of applications and what happens now that we've received more than 60,000 units in applications. So we look forward to your questions, and then we'll sort of the standard format we've done for other Q&A sessions. And so that's what our primary concern will be this afternoon. After we get through those questions, if people have other issues about still working on active applications and stuff, then I'm happy to field them. So at this moment, I'm going to turn over to my colleague Will, and he'll talk to you about where we are with the whole application and awards. Will.
Sure. Thanks, Greg. So today we'll be focusing on the first component, submissions that we've received. Next week, there will be a session for second component submissions, a separate group. So thank you for the continued interest we've received. We've received a large number of applications while we were on furlough and over the last month, 2 months. Thanks for your patience, and I apologize for any delays in reviewing and processing such a large volume. But we're very excited about what we've seen. So
and Will, I just forgot one thing. I want to do a shout out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a RAD conference that's going on in Detroit with PHAs from Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois. They're also joining the call. Just wanted to welcome them and say thanks for taking the day out of your busy schedules to come and learn more about RAD to those at that conference in Detroit. Okay, Will, back to you.
Okay. So many of you received the RAD blast on November 4th. It gave the update as of October 25th, where we said we've got 459 applications in total, which is representing a little over 76,000 units. We've awarded in CHAPS a little over 21,000 units, and 55,000 units are still under review. But we want to highlight that, well first of all, the data is a week and a half old, and we're still receiving applications. So these numbers are probably a little bit higher, and we'll have updates moving forward. We want to remind everyone that the authority that we have under the demonstration is for 60,000 units to convert. To date, we've only had a handful of projects complete conversion. They've just really come to completion in the last month or so, and we're going to have a few more before the end of the year, but we're a long way off from converting 60,000 units. And so we will continue to receive applications very happily. One thing I want to point out, and I know a lot of folks have submitted applications and want to know a few things. One, HUD, have you actually received it? Two, how long is it going to take to review it? And three, when am I going to find out where I stand with respect to the awards HUD will make? Okay, so first of all, we should by now have caught up on all of the confirmation receipt emails that say thanks for submitting. Your application's under review, and from here on forward, it should certainly be within 24 hours that you receive such a receipt. But for those who have submitted and have not gotten confirmation, please let us know, just so we can confirm for you. Second, because of the large volume that we are looking at right now, while in the notice we'd said we'd try to review and provide approvals of applications within 30 days of receipt, we're just realistically looking at more like 45 days for the bulk of applications. And obviously Thanksgiving and holidays are upcoming, and so there might be some little delays here and there, but 45 days is really sort of the number we're looking at. There will certainly be some that take less than that time, but again, we thank you for your patience as we work with this volume. now the question that everyone wants to know, which is, well, where does my application stand? I've submitted on a certain date. How is HUD making the awards? When will I hear? As an initial step, we don't quite have a queue lined up because our intent is to award 60,000 units worth of CHAPS, to not over-award. And then as CHAPS fall out, we will pull active applications from the queue. But our intent, just sort of in the near term, as we really get that queue finalized up, is to put out a list likely next week that by date of applications received and a cumulative running number. And that way, any given housing authority can say, okay, I submitted my application on this date. How do I stand with respect to the 60,000 the 60,000 units? So again, I think it'll be realistic that we get that out within a week, and hopefully that'll be helpful for those who want to know. But we're also sensitive that we don't want to reveal specific projects or specific housing authorities at this time. So this will allow you to know where your particular housing authority stands in the applications you submitted. So as I said, we'll be issuing 60,000 units worth of CHAPS, and that'll happen over the next 30, 45 days, probably possibly going into as late as early January. As CHAPS are revoked because housing authorities are missing milestones, or as PHAs withdraw their CHAPS, we will be maintaining a queue of active and pending applications relative to the dates in which the applications were originally submitted. We'll be actively reviewing applications, a reasonable number of applications beyond the 60,000 units, so that we have sort of an active bench of projects that we can pull from as CHAPS are withdrawn or revoked. All submitted applications will remain in the pending queue, and then when it's reasonable, when there's a chance they could be pulled and made active, we will alert the housing authority. And this is sort of our effort to make sure that we're moving as quickly as possible to make sure there's a healthy pipeline of projects ready to go as CHAPS pull out. So the last thing is conversations with us. You've probably heard, and if you've been paying attention to the federal appropriations process, the department is also working actively with Congress to see if we can get the 60,000 unit cap on RAD increased. The department's requested an increase up to 150,000 units in our 2014 budget request. Although we're under continuing resolution now until January 15th, we're optimistic that there will be a full year appropriation following that, and if so, hopeful that with Congress's support we can expand the demonstration and make more awards to housing authorities under that. Okay, with that, we'll turn to questions. I think we've talked through a little, for the old guard, you know how to ask a question over GoToMeeting, but for those new to this, just raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. We'll unmute your line so you can ask your question live and in front of everyone. And that's our preferred way. You can also send in questions, but it's often harder for us to see them and read them completely. So if you call in, that would really be best. If you raise your hand. We've got a few already ready. Who's first? Margaret Allen, you're on the air. Margaret, you still there?
No, I'm okay. That wasn't me.
It wasn't for you, Margaret? Okay. So we're going to skip Margaret. Joe Schiff is next in line. Joe, you have a question?
Yes, I want to make sure I understood Will. If I submit an application tomorrow, and its application number, unit number 80,000, okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to go into the queue as of tomorrow, but the application will not be reviewed until it gets towards the top and is ready to be converted. Is that right? You're not going to review them?
Right. Well, you know, we haven't made a specific determination about where the cutoff is, but we set a reasonable number, and if there's a chance that CHAPS there'll be room to make some more CHAP awards, we'd review it then. But right, it's very possible that we wouldn't review yours right away. We'd certainly review the ones that are still in the process of being reviewed first.
Sure, but you'll acknowledge receipt but not review. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Joe, you have a follow-up, or that's it? Good. Thanks, Joe. Mary V. Kraft? Mary? No? Okay, Mary, maybe you can raise your hand again. So we're going to just keep going down the list. So the next is Charlene Regan. Charlene?
Hi. Will you look at projects against the original regional targets you had, particularly, say, for the Northeast, which in the past hasn't had as many applications?
We expect that we're going to consolidate the pools.
You will, so the targets won't be meaningful anymore.
Right. So we're still looking at that. We've got to review our final decision with our Office of General Counsel to make sure we're consistent with the language in the notice. But our expectation is we gave everyone, you know, the ample time to apply, and we think that it's not necessary to sort of continue with the regional pools at this stage. But we'll as soon as we learn more fully from OGC, we'll pass that along, maybe by next week.
Coming from the Northeast, I'd urge you to keep a little space for some.
Thanks, Charlene. Art, Kate. Art, hey, do you have a call? Question?
Yes, thank you. Let me make sure that the applications that are in the hopper before 12/31, when Congress raises the cap from 60 to 150, those are the ones that are going to be considered up until, I guess. Is that correct?
Art, this is Pat Costigan. Let me try to address that. We only have authority now to convert units up to 60,000 under this cap. So right. The Congress, under the statute, has been clear that we can't take a queue or a waiting list and honor what we have or in the current waiting list and apply it to any additional authority that we may get beyond the 60,000. So, said otherwise, what we can do is take what we have in the queue. We know that the rents will be honored for calendar year 13 at the level that we've set in the notice. And as long as we have authority under the 60,000 units, those rents, that queue will be honored for the 60,000 units of authority. What we have to do is get an increase of the cap to proceed beyond that. And proceeding beyond that, we will be in a different budget year. In other words, to get the increase in the cap, we're going to get authority from Congress, and there will be a budget, and there will be new allocations for public housing, operating, and cap funds. So we'll have to work from there. So that's how we understand it. We're pretty clear on that. That's how it's going to work.
And so following on that, Art, is the Congress might say to us, oh, I see you have this waiting list, and you've had a protocol that's pretty open and for which people have been applying, and I see there's an additional demand of 20 or 30 or 40,000 units. And so, department, I would expect you, or I want you to use that surplus in the same order in which people applied. But until they give us the authority for the go over 60, we don't know yet how we can, how those next units can be. So they have to tell us essentially the method by which we will accept. We can't assume that we can use the same one. It may very well be the case, and certainly that is a desire of many to say, well, I've already applied, so Congress, can't you just use that? But we do have to wait for them to tell us what to do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we've got Patty Ziegler. Patty?
Hi. I'm thinking of applying for the 2 housing authorities that I manage, and the question that I have that I haven't been able to find an answer to is I know that you replace the traditional HAP payment with the operating funds and the capital funds that we receive for our public housing program on a per unit basis. We didn't receive any operating subsidy in 2012 due to high reserves. What would I expect to get then?
Sure. Patty, you from Minnesota?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, no, I know you called me yesterday. I'm sorry I haven't called you back. I was just guessing. In 2012, that PHAs had that operating fund offset, and so some PHAs like yourselves, when you ended up contributing the offset, you actually HUD didn't give you any subsidy. But when we calculate your 2012 rents, we do it based on your 2012 eligibility, not what you actually received, at 95% proration. So when you go into the application itself today, and if you go into the RAD inventory assessment tool and you pull up your respective properties, you'll find that that number, when you look in the tool and in the so-called validation page or whatever appropriate area of the tool of the application, you'll see a number associated with how much operating subsidy that makes up your contract rent, and that is higher than you actually got in 2012 because we disregard the offset. Essentially, we've recalculated your eligibility at 2012 levels, assuming 95% proration. Okay?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Okay, sorry I didn't get back to you, too.
That's okay.
Yeah. Okay, the next question, we're going to go with John Lazar.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. So you're saying that just because, even if a PHA submits their application by the 12/31 deadline, they're not guaranteed to get the 2012 contract rents if they're not brought in under the 60,000 cap unit?
That's precisely it. Right. And let me just add back on to Art's question and yours, John. Despite that, the most important thing we all think would be to continue to show your interest in the program and get your application in. And that helps, frankly, to show the Congress that there's interest and demand out there in proceeding. And as Greg suggested, we don't have authority to say there'll be a policy about honoring the queue as it is, but it would be reasonable if we get the authority and the direction from Congress for us to pay attention to those that submitted their proposals in a time and date ordered sequence. That's probably the most rational thing to do from your vantage point, we think, on the outside right now, relative to this cap issue that we're trying to manage.
Right. We're thrilled right now that we have, again, we haven't run the numbers in the last couple of days, but that we're probably 20,000 over the cap, and we'll be even more thrilled if we're 40,000 or 60,000 over the cap, because as Pat said, that makes for a pretty powerful argument to the Congress to raise it, which we'd like to do. So, yes, we certainly encourage you to continue to submit.
And I think it's fair to say that it's our intent to keep the momentum going and implement as fair a program as possible. If the cap is lifted, those would be guiding principles. So.
Okay, thanks, John.
Thank you.
Okay, the next is Margaret. You're back on. You have a question now? Margaret Allen, or is
this
it
is
still
Margaret. No, I do actually. We've been working with a number of sort of mid-sized housing authorities scattered around the South, and they tend to have a small number of small projects, maybe 6 or 8 30-unit projects here and there. So could you speak to the willingness of both RAD and housing, since I plan to file these probably for D4 mortgages, to consolidating them into single scattered site projects?
Right. So there's no right. So let me start first from the programmatic side, and then unfortunately Dan Sullivan or Ted Toon aren't here from the FHA side. But from the programmatic side, there's no prohibition against either splitting existing AMPs if they're too unwieldy that a project has, a PHA has today, or combining amps into sort of larger, more manageable. So our whole thing is a single, manageable, marketable entity, is what it is. And so we're fine, and now that fine means you got to first find a lender. So if it's a private lender that's not doing FHA and they're sort of fine with it, okay, then likely it's going to pass our muster. But FHA, as you're aware, has its own rules on sort of what can be put into a scattered site, sort of grouping. And I know that they've been very generous in working with us so far in allowing projects to sort of say, okay, we're to move forward. I think that some of these are probably better on a sort of one-on-one call to work through the details of them and get you an early read from FHA about is this going to be a problem or not going to be a problem. Because it's just so hard to, each circumstance is different. So, Margaret, again, we're happy to convene, a call for the deal that you're looking at, and bring in both the Office of Housing, but FHA as well.
So we should organize a call with you, and then you'll go get Dan.
Yeah, if you just want to give us some dates, we'll pull it off.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. Catherine Frischip. Catherine.
Hi. I'm interested in, could you state again exactly what list will be available next week? And in particular, I'm interested in those applications, the names of the PHAs and the developments for applications that have been submitted, and then applications that have been approved, sort of similar to the list that you posted, I think, back in May, of the PHAs and the developments that were, I believe, awarded applications, or the applications were accepted.
So for approved applications, so for which we awarded CHAPS, we post that list of housing authority and projects on our website, and we'll continue to do that. But for applications received, and we've seen a few written questions to this regard, where we haven't yet finalized our review, we're going to post a list of dates. So it'll say, and I'm making these numbers, in fact I'm going to use completely different months, just not to scare anybody. March 5th, 400 applications received for a running total of 57,200 units. March 6th, 2,000 units of applications received for a running total of 59,400 units, or whatever the appropriate math would be there. So it would just be over the last few months, or whatever the appropriate time period is. Each date, we'd say how many units of applications we received, and the total running number, the total running cumulative number of units that represents. And that way a housing authority can determine, okay, I know I submitted my application on March 5th, and it looks like I am under the 60,000 units that HUD plans to issue CHAPS for.
And those housing authorities or applications that you've awarded the CHAPS, the last time I looked, and I didn't look today, the list was from May of this year. So at least the list that's on the HUD website was out of date, and I'm wondering when you'll be able to update that.
Thanks. Thanks for pointing that out. We apologize for that. We'll update that shortly.
In the next week or so, or what short?
Yeah,
definitely next week.
Yeah,
definitely. We can turn that around pretty quickly.
The short story is we're at about 20,000, I think what we said in our recent blast in terms of units and housing authorities, and that's all just got to be added to the 12,000 or 13,000 we talked about in May, and that's just one of the things in the pile here. So we'll get that updated. And Catherine, one of the reasons behind all that is these applications become real when they get the initial approval. So that, we think, is probably the best way to proceed, is when they're real, everybody will know and certainly should be proceeding in advancing their applications from an initial approval to a final approval then.
Yeah, I do think it would be very helpful to post as soon as you can and to try to keep it updated on a running basis, the way you say that you'll be doing applications coming in, you know, kind of, I don't know how tight that was to the example, but, you know, as of March the 5th and then March the 10th or something like that that you gave, if you could keep the list of approved CHAPs up to date and running as frequently as you have applications, I think that would be helpful to everybody.
Yep, we're going to do that.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. Paul Jerkowski, Paul?
No question.
No question? Okay. Thanks, Paul. Ron Long. Ron?
Yeah, we have a client who his operating fund eligibility in 2013 was actually greater than his eligibility in 2012. And he's trying to get some guidance as to whether to apply this year and get the 2012 funding level, or apply next year and get the 2013 funding level, or whatever funding level is next year. And I guess, I mean, I'm kind of aware that I'm asking you to look at a crystal ball here and predict the future. But
yeah, we have no, I don't want to say we were trying to be cute, but the notice was silent on what happens when people apply in 2014. It doesn't say how we will calculate the rent, and that's a function of that we had clear direction on what we could do for applications 2013, and we also felt we'd be at our cap. So we really, right now it's a moot issue because we don't have any authority to go above 60, and that we will certainly use the current applications before we ever get to 2014 applications. And so we really have to wait for the Congress to both give us the increase in cap, but also say, okay, well, now they're getting increase in cap. Is the same deal on the table in terms of now, if the appropriations go back to more normal levels, then really it's not an issue, because then our funding, the funding they'll get in 2014, if it's based on current year appropriations, is essentially equal to 2012 funding.
Okay, now is that one thing that we can kind of count on, that if you're establishing it based on, say, 2013, if the RAD funding was based on 2013 funding levels for applications received in 2014, we're going to be looking at the eligibility with some proration applied.
Yeah, even that we can't say with certainty, because
okay.
Congress, it's very likely that Congress, when they give us the cap, are also going to give us some signals, either direct or indirect, on sort of how to set these. So we certainly would be convenient for everyone if we were to say, for example, be able to keep the 212 throughout this process. But again, we have no authority yet to say we can do that.
Yeah, this past year presented a challenge because we didn't get a budget from the Congress till 6 months into the year, and it was very difficult for a lot of you to know what was going on. So we basically had to draw the best line that we could back in March and say, this is the appropriate thing that we can do here through the balance of the calendar year. And we're hopeful, we're optimistic that we'll get a budget sooner than March. Looks like the earliest we're going to see a budget, frankly, is going to be January 15th. Could be sooner. We don't know. But we're hopeful we'll see a budget. As Greg said, first we have to have an increase in the cap, because we do have plenty of applications to go through for what's in hand through calendar year 13 and the rent levels. And then secondly, as we get, hopefully, an increase in the cap to respond to your demand, we'll get the guidance from the Congress on what the open cap funds are, and we'll be able to set rents relative to what we see then. So that's all to be determined, though.
And Ron, on a very practical level, here's what my advice would be for your client. Submit the application. If it turns out the deal in the future is something different and it's better, you can pull the application and resubmit. But there's no harm getting in line now.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Ray Bidet. Hello, Ray.
Hello, Greg. I was just calling to confirm when you have a CHAP to a housing authority in a deal in which there is no loan, that it is not required that we set up a single asset entity. I'm still getting calls about that, and as I told you, I don't think it's required. Is that accurate to say?
So in the PBRA program, project-based rental assistance program, we currently we strongly encourage people to set up single asset entities. There was a thought that in fact there was a requirement, but it looks as if right now that it's not embodied in any type of formal requirement. So PHAs that for reasons that in their best interest they feel they do not want to create a single asset entity, and it's not required. Now this issue sort of been raised and there's not a requirement, I don't want to say there wouldn't be a requirement in the future if multifamily decides to establish something, but you're correct that there's right now not a requirement to set up a single asset entity to convert to PPRA. If you would be required to if you're doing FHA insurance, but if you're not doing any financing, then it's not a requirement of the program.
All right. Well, thank you, Greg. That's very helpful.
Thanks, Ray. James Cox. James?
Hello.
Hey.
I have a question
James.
about, hey, how are you?
Good.
The question about portfolio award.
Okay.
And assuming that you submit and receive a portfolio award this calendar year with half of the applications, and assuming if a chat was given for that half the applications, going into next year within that 1 year time period where you have to submit the remaining portion of the applications, where would there be a placeholder for those remaining applications towards the conversion cap, or would they just fall in line with the rest of, what's the placeholder for?
So those that submitted portfolios, for purposes of the 60,000 units, we count both your initial block plus the portfolio that are coming in the next year. So we've already reserved your authority as part of the 60,000. Because I think that's the case in Greensboro. You guys submitted. You've already received the acknowledgement that you've submitted.
Right.
Correct. You don't have a chap yet, right? But if you're if indeed, let's just make an example. Greensboro applied when we had awarded 50,000 chaps, and they put in for 1,000, and then another 1,000 units that they would do under a portfolio that wouldn't come in until next year. We reserved up to 52,000 units for you. We reserved the full 2,000
on approval.
I see.
On initial
approval. Right. So that's how it is. You don't have. So you're included if your application came in on time and there was CHAP authority to assign. Yep. Does that help, James?
Thanks. Yeah, that does. Thanks.
Good. Maria Marquez. Hello, Maria.
Hi, this is Chuck Gregg from the Camden Housing Authority. One question. We want to present to our board for approval this month possible RAD applications, and we're thinking about portfolio. And we want to be able to tell them that we do show them a citation that says we have the right not to put in 1 or 2 amps to that portfolio package if we choose not to, because it doesn't work for us. Is there somewhere to get that?
Let me think. I'm not sure if I.
Are you trying to say you're trying to convert most of your properties, but not all of your properties?
Right. We want to convert some properties, but we want to tell our board when we go to them for approval that just because we submitted them, we still have the privilege of withdrawing them because there's some citation in place, some legal citation that says we have that option to do so.
Yeah, I'm happy to send that to you offline. There's something in the notice that says there's no penalty for withdrawing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so we're just going to look at our queue here and see if we've got any other hands raised. So just take a second to see. Right now they're empty. Okay, looks like I got a call again from John Lazar.
Yeah, it's more a general RAD question.
Sure.
In the case of new replacement RAD units over multiple phases, What's the timeline on those? Do the replacement units need to be online within a certain amount of years?
So the primary requirement under a multi-phase application is that the last phase, you submit the RAD application for the last phase before July 1st, 2015. So for every single phase, you're giving us a separate RAD application when you're ready to submit them, as long as the last phase, the application comes in before July 1st, 2015. Once you submit the application, we treat it like any other single project application. We award a CHAP. The CHAP has milestones and closing, which generally is when the construction financing is closed. Happens usually within 360 days, sometimes a little bit longer if there's a tax credit reason for it. And so those are really the milestones that matter. And then after that, the completion of construction will largely be dictated by your lender or investor.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Vince O'Donnell. Vince, where are you these days?
Where am I today? I'm in St. Paul. Hi.
Vince, congratulations on your pending award from those of us here at HUD that won't be able to join you next week.
Well, I'm sorry you can't. I'd love to see you. Thank you.
All right, we'll talk offline, Vince.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you a yell. So I have a macro question. You already have more than 60,000 applications, and given the kind of acceptance rate that you've got going right now, you expect to hit the 60 with the ones you already have. I mean, part of why I'm asking is I assume there's going to be a surge before December 31st. Right. And so I'm trying to get a sense of how far down below the 60,000 things that are not already in are going to be.
Yeah, I think that's a good and fair question, Vince. The truthful answer is we don't know what the conversion rate, if you will be. Earlier on, we had, and the housing authorities had time to submit their applications, and we had time to process and review them, and so we had a pretty good, from application to initial approval, so we kind of know that. And we would expect, as the program has gone along, that housing authorities have learned what it takes to submit a successful application, and we'll have a pretty high initial approval rate, okay? We would expect that, but we don't know. And then what we really don't know, Vince, is as we proceed with those initially approved units, properties, if you will, how many will actually result in conversions. So that, that's kind of the unknown that we have to manage to with our 60,000 units of authority. So we're going to try to be as clear as we can on how that's proceeding and what's happening, but it really will be an ongoing process to manage against that 60,000 units of authority as we go forward.
Okay. Thank you very much.
We're looking to see if there's anybody else on the queue. Gary Scott. Gary, do you want to give us your question?
Greg, it's Gary. How are you doing?
Good.
I have a question for you. We've gotten approval from our board for the RAD. We've gone through the process. I had gotten board approval to do a green physical needs, and when this process started, I'm changed to a physical condition assessment.
Okay.
I might be moving too far ahead, considering my application hopefully will go in this week.
All right.
What do you suggest?
Are you afraid you're going too fast on the PCA?
Well, I mean, it's completed. I've done all of that. I've been waiting on our application to be completed so I could submit it.
Right.
But I'm just afraid, am I moving too fast? Should I slow down?
No, I mean, a number of PHAs sort of have jump-started it to say, I want to know what those capital needs are now so I can better prepare my financing plans, my draft plans, and all. And assuming we were to get the increase in the cap from the Congress, and if we open up the spigot again, then believe me, we'll be reasonable with you with the fact that you just completed an RPCA, and we're not going to require you to do a new one and all that. So you'll be fine.
Okay, thanks.
And if you find yourself at one of the things we've looked into and made sure of is that for a housing authority that's done the RAD physical conditions assessment, if they're staying in the public housing stock after all, for whatever reason, and therefore subject to the P&A requirements, it's a very small lift to conform the PCA results to the P&A. It may be a small additional task order for the contractor, but it would be pretty inexpensive if that was sort of the end result.
Yeah, they said that there would be a difference in the pricing. Of course, I had to pay more because I did the physical condition assessment versus the physical needs. But they said that there would be a small, but they suggested that I do the PCA before the GP&A.
Okay.
It'd be cheaper that way.
It'll be good. Hopefully we'll get our cap lifted.
Hope so. Thanks.
Thanks, Gary. Chris Warren. Hello, Chris.
Hi, good afternoon, gentlemen. I have two questions for you. One has to do with the FAS and vacancy reduction plan requirements that housing authorities have to adhere to.
Okay.
If a CHAP is awarded by the end of the year, will that essentially be retroactive for the year to the agency? So my authority is awarded prior to 12/31, assuming we come in under the 60,000 cap, and those FAS requirements and vacancy reduction plan requirements that have been in place for grading the agency throughout the year, will those essentially then be null and void?
It all depends on when your CHAP is issued. So if you're, depending on the date the CHAP is issued, the project will be exempt from FAS in that fiscal year, starting from that fiscal year, as long as the CHAP is effective and certainly beyond conversion.
So if they're a fiscal year ending 12/31, and if the CHAP is issued in November or December, then that project would be exempt from, or projects would be exempt from FAS for that fiscal year and forward. Right. Does that work, Chris?
Sorry.
Yeah, for that fiscal year, you know, whether it's a month left or whether it's just the start of the fiscal year, the year that's still, you know, current as of the date that CHAP is issued, plus, of course, all future fiscal years.
Perfect. Thank you. And then my second question has to do with the submittal of the application. We submitted the application and also submitted a second copy in a PDF form because we were worried about the size of the application, and of course it did get kicked back. The one copy, the original copy, was kicked back, but the PDF was not. We resubmitted as requested, and I wanted to make sure we would be able to still be in line based on the original date of submittal versus when we had to resubmit.
We've got members of our review team in the audience here right now, and it looks as if
the date of the first email.
The date of the first email is controlling.
Perfect. You've answered my question. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris. Sure. Margaret, you've got another question?
Yes. She had a question about whether a housing authority that wants to continue to manage its RAD properties has to incorporate separately or not.
No, they do not.
Okay, thank you.
Kathleen Bowl?
Hi. Earlier, one of you stated that a handful of PHAs have already completed the conversion.
Yes.
Are you guys going to provide more information on those so that we can kind of look to those as examples?
Yeah, we'll be hopefully creating some sort of guide too that sort of walks through the steps of you know, the conversion checklist of all the things that need to be done, and the transaction managers will be better and better equipped. Still, bear with us because this is you know, we're still gaining our legs on this, but the transaction managers and it should be better equipped moving forward in guiding you through that.
Okay, but will the housing authorities that have made the conversions, will that become public knowledge just so that we can look at those and kind of see what type of property that was, how many units they did, that type of thing?
Yes, absolutely. A handful may be an understatement. And what we've seen so far are transactions that needed to take an initial step, usually relating to transferring assistance from one or two buildings to be able to vacate the buildings and sort of do construction in an early way, minimize the impact on the residents. And so they're sort of not the complete picture of a full-blown project, and you probably wouldn't learn a whole lot from what we've got, which is really, you can count them on, fingers in one hand. But as we get those, we're certainly going to have all that information made available, public, and we in no way want to suggest that the housing authorities that have done this should be proud of that. We're just a little behind on all that, and it's just beginning to happen.
Right. Just for everyone to know, so that the shutdown, was obviously pushed some things back, and so we've got a lot of projects that were sort of in the, or a few dozen that were in the pipeline to close this year, and we've been most sensitive to getting those that are sort of, that if they don't close, they lose their tax credit. So we really are trying to prioritize those. And but it also happened that some of the mixed finance projects that are sort of existing mixed finance, because they weren't accessing new financing, that the transaction was less complicated. Those were some of the first ones to come through, just because they were easy deals to close. So it just so happens. But anyway, we'll be making available, just like the so-called waiting list. We'll also post the projects that close. Okay, Kate, are you in Charlottesville?
Okay. I'm sorry?
Are you in Charlottesville?
No, I'm not.
No. Okay, I thought.
And will that be posted on the HUD website or the RAD resource website?
HUD website.
I'm sorry, HUD?
With the RAD
okay.
Under the HUD website.
www.hud.gov/RAD.
Good. Thanks. Maria.
This is Chuck Valentine again.
For Maria.
It's two structural questions relevant to our existing Section 8 program. We have 1,400 plus vouchers/units. The CHAP written by HUD will be with the Housing Authority, and the Housing Authority Section 8 will oversee those CHAP funds, but they then will enter into a HAP with the HACC's affiliate, correct?
So, right, the CHAP is made to the Housing Authority that controls the public housing units today. At the end of the day, if you're converting to project-based vouchers, the Housing Authority that has the voucher program will be the voucher administrator and administer the subsidy. And the owner, which may be an affiliate of the Housing Authority, will just be the owner and receive the subsidy and be in contract on the other end of that project-based voucher contract.
And that contract will be between the ownership entity, whoever that is. In many cases, it's the affiliate of the VHA, and the voucher agency. That the contract is executed between those two.
Right. Thank you. And then does the CHAP, the additional CHAP budgetary authority for the RAD units, that's isolated and separate from the present Section 8 vouchers and budgetary authority, or does it just get wrapped into it?
It ultimately, at the end of the day, it will be a new increment of voucher HAP to the Housing Authority, and will not be separated on a separate line item.
Yeah, just to be clear for everyone, the CHAP is the temporary or the initial approval to assemble the plan, the team, the ownership structure, the financing, all the details. Once approved in final form, a more conventional HAP, Housing Assistance Payment Contract, is then issued to the owner of the property. The contract runs to the owner of the property, and we'll set it, could be an affiliate of the Housing Authority itself. But the CHAP would very well be issued to a Housing Authority, the initial or temporary approval, if you will. But once it's all finalized, that contract runs to the owner of the property, just to clarify that for everyone.
Good. Thanks. Just looking to see if we have others. Right now, not. Okay. So I think what we'll do is we'll put an end to the call. Let you know that we're working furiously on several dozen FAQs that people have sent to us over the past month or so, and we're really vetting some of these, in various places inside the department that they cross different jurisdictions. So, possibly in the next several days or week that we'll have some FAQs that people have been waiting for. So look out for them. And again, thanks for all of your interest and patience. And then we have
next week, just to kind of add on what we said at the top, we'll have a separate session that we'll be able to talk about the second component of RAD and the additional authority that we got, meaning the anomaly under the continuing resolution, and how that will work. We've worked through with OGC and the Congress what we think the sort of the direction is there, and we should be in a position to talk more clearly about that. That's probably a different subset of folks that are on this call, but we will have a call on that for those that are interested. I think actually we sent out a RAD blast this afternoon already on that, and we'll queue up a time for that. But those that are interested in understanding how that additional limited authority that we got for the second component is going to work, we'll be talking about that next week. And all right, I want to thank you all, and we'll let you know the next RAD QA session. Thank you.